ladies and gentlemen, to the first of our new podcast series called Factinating, a series in which each of our 5 hosts will explain a random fact each week based on a pre-chosen theme. After each fact has been explained, we will vote on a winner. The voting system goes as follows. Each fact will be judged by the presenters and given a score out of 30 across 3 sections, each section given a score out of 10. The person given the highest score is crowned the first undisputed Factinating champion. The 3 sections are legitness,
checking that the facts are in fact facts,
epicness,
how interesting each fact is,
pretty self-explanatory, and usefulness.
How much we can use that fact in real life.
Because as much as we all love knowing that most American car horns honk in the key of F, in 17 years I haven't needed this information. I hope in whatever years I've got left I never will. And unless you're producing car horns as a job, you probably won't either, meaning this fact would score very low on usefulness. Another thing I should add is that until the show's recorded live, myself, Ollie, Luca and Josh don't know each other's facts, so we'll just hope in advance that no one has brought in 2 of the same or one about the tone of American car horns. With all that said, it's time for our first fact, presented by Jago Plummer, who has given a fact of history, given a theme of history.
Right, so this week, I'll bring you a history-based fact. Hold on to your hats, people, as we are metaphorically travelling the 7 seas to discuss this piece of information. It is widely thought that pirates used to wear eye patches for missing eyes. However, contrary to popular belief, this was not the case. In fact, the eye patches were covering one eye to allow the pirates to have a sort of night vision. The eye that was covered would be adjusted to the dark cover of the eye patch, which meant if they had to go below deck, they could have better vision if they needed to fight or get anything that they might need. This fact can still be applied to today's society, with flight manuals stating that even though a bright light may shine in one eye, the other will retain its dark adaptation if it is protected from the light. This is a useful bit of information because a flyer can preserve dark adaptation in one eye by simply closing it. Even the FAA, being the Federal Aviation Administration, recommends that a pilot should close one eye when using a light to preserve some degree of night vision. But that's enough talk about pirates.
Really? That must be fake.
Well, you can see the FAA does recommend it, so that is a bit of...
What does the FAA stand for?
That's the Federal Aviation Administration.
Nice,
What
right.
country is it based in?
3 sections.
Wow.
Legitness. Seems pretty legit to me.
I haven't got any evidence to suggest otherwise, really.
You shouldn't believe everything you see on the internet, I'm going to say.
That's true, but if the FAA or whatever is saying
is
it,
pretty good.
I'll take that. I'll take that as a source.
Really.
Right,
Although they
epicness.
don't judge. I mean, it is a pretty good fact, to be fair.
It's pretty good.
It breaks down to
it's not groundbreaking, I would say. But
I think it's a good fact.
I'll give it a solid, 7.
So a 7 out of 10 for that?
Yeah, right. So on legitness, we're pretty happy with that. That can be quite high. What are we going for legitness?
I'd say a good 8. Good 8.
I'd say 8 because there's nothing against it.
No, we're not doing 0.5.
No.
Just going to make our show.
We're going 8.
Why don't you do 0.5? Everybody likes 0.5s.
What are you trying to say?
The majority vote is 8. I think
I'm
legitness.
saying 8.
Yeah, we'll go 8.
I'm going 8. So
Sorry,
Jago,
Luca.
legitness.
Overruled.
His loot score is currently at 8.
Okay, epicness. I think this is an interesting fact.
I think it is pretty interesting, yeah.
But as Josh said, it's not one that you'd
Probably
go home and tell your family about. But it's a good fact.
I think, yeah. I think it's pretty interesting.
I think 7's a solid number. That's a good number.
7's good.
7?
Yeah. 7, why not?
I'll settle 7.
Settle for a 7.
Okay, usefulness.
I mean,
If it's still used today,
I reckon 9 because if you can.
Are we going to use it though?
that's the thing.
It is something you could use at a party though. So
If you're about to go on a diet, you close an eye.
I mean, at a party, you could be like, if somebody's wearing an eye patch, you could be like, you know, eye patch actually used.
Do many people
Yeah.
wear
Well,
eye patches at the parties you go
I
to?
don't
All
know.
the
Have
time.
you met any?
All the time.
Not many.
Yeah, I've met like
Every
3
day?
people last night.
I
Right.
suppose you could
There's always a
walk
guy
into
walking
like
down
It
campus.
is,
Coaching
the
wrist.
thing is, it could be really useful for
Yeah, true.
a pilot. It's just how many of us are pilot. I'm gonna go. I think 7 again. It's fair.
I'd say
Yeah,
6.
I'd
I think
say
it's a lot
6.
less general, but it is still applicable.
I say 7.
7, Luca. 6 or 7.
Oh, 7, sorry.
7.
I was not going to be 7.
Okay, 7.
So his total loot score is 14 plus 8, which gives us a grand total
15, 20.
of... Sorry, not 15.
Wait, oh
26.
shit. Oh no, I was
gonna
adding
say-
26.
Yeah.
No, I was
The
adding
math
it
was
like
a
solid
8,
score.
7,
It is
and
a
then
good
was
score.
going to add the
I
rest.
mean, it'd be better if that
That's
score
right.
was right. It's 22.
Oh my
Good.
god.
Oh well.
Let's keep that
So
in.
it is. So it is.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen,
So
we're a
nice.
fact-based podcast, not a maths one.
Yeah.
And that is a fact.
I only did A level maths for 1 year. How am I meant to know that?
I didn't. Mr. Bit psychology though. That helps.
Okay.
That's
It's always good.
Right, well then. That's enough talk about Pirates tonight. Now it's time to see what Josh brings us.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is also historical in some sense, but it's also scientific. So,
Okay.
a pocket calculator these days, right, has more computing power than we used for the moon landing, so Apollo 11.
I've heard that. I've heard
So
that
I've heard
before.
that before.
Back
as
on
well.
I've heard that in a
Yeah.
pub.
It's quite. Of course, you
I'm
know.
not
A
joking.
pub.
Don't know how many.
Yeah, no,
I've
honestly.
heard that before.
So, yeah.
Specifically a weather.
Let's get down to the evidence.
That's
guys,
good.
let's get
Yeah,
down.
yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, continue. Yeah.
Right.
It's like
So back on off at the Goddard Space Flight Center, thousands of flight technicians and computer experts employed the IBM system, mainframe computer thing, to make independent computations or whatever, and maintain communication between Earth and lunar landers. These computers cost about 3.5 mil a piece and were like the size of a car, so each could perform like several 100,000 additional operations per second, and their total memory capacity was like in the megabyte range, so like not even a gigabyte.
Jeez.
Programs were developed in the 75s, so 1975. They monitored the spacecraft's environmental data and astronauts' health, which were at the time the most complex software ever developed.
Fair enough.
That is mad.
The calculator's out doing that.
I mean, yeah.
Exactly.
When it says, like computing, what was the word? The term?
Computing
power.
Computations or something.
Computations is one I got
So are
down.
we talking
It's like-
calculations per second?
Like at once, yeah. So like
Simultaneous
Oh, I
calculations.
see. Yeah.
Okay.
how many like equations? you
What
can
kind
work
of pocket calculator do you mean? Do you mean like one you get from like a Christmas crack?
A
Or
scientific one. I'll just
out. I
say.
reckon,
like
yeah, I
a-
reckon like Casio
Or
or
like,
you know,
a, like a scientific
We're not
one?
sponsored
one.
by Casio,
Yeah, well, you
unfortunately.
know,
I
the
think
one,
just a
that's the one I
standard Casio
used.
one.
Yeah.
We'll have to bleep that out.
Cut me through mine.
Yeah.
Right. Voting. So legitness.
Well, I mean, I've heard it from a lot of places, and I reckon it's definitely plausible.
So have I. Yeah.
There's that rule that says
I'm-
computing
I'm-
power doubles every.
When
year
I
or
when I
something.
heard that fact, I heard that it was a small Nokia phone, like
Oh.
because there was a small Nokia phone to hand. So I'm like,
Fair enough.
I'm still questioning that a calculator has more computing power than.
I've
still
heard it
questioning
before
it.
with calculator. To be fair, so
I
I'm gonna stick
have
with
heard
Josh.
it,
Yeah.
but
I don't want to. Like, maybe I've just missed something, but it seems to be like a lot of information about the lunar things, but there's not much evidence to back up the
On the
actual power
calculator.
of the.
That's what I did think that myself.
Yeah, how many
We haven't
Like
got a
they're
direct
just talking
statistic.
about the
calculator doing them?
computers that it's up against, but not much to.
I agree actually.
Oh shit.
So that for me,
Exactly.
I'm gonna kick off the legitness with a low score of 5.
It's a bit
I
harsh.
think
but it's
five's fair. It's halfway.
I'd give it a 6. I think it's
Like,
it's
we've
definitely
heard
got
it
more
before,
credibility, but
it's not
um,
enough evidence for
I
me.
would like some citation on that. But
Luca?
Is this for legitness?
Legitness, yeah.
I'll give it a solid 5 because it's just
Yeah.
one of those facts you hear like the
Right.
3-second memory about
other
a
people have
fish.
spoken.
It's like you don't actually know.
Old wives' tale.
Might be a
Pretty sure there was a study
Nice.
about goldfish remembering patterns in order to
Yeah, I
find
know,
food
you
and
can
stuff.
teach them
Wasn't there?
tricks.
They could remember up to like 3 months. So there you
Yeah.
go. Goldfish, quite clever.
I can remember up to 3 seconds.
Okay, epicness.
In terms of
That is
interestingness,
Definitely is an
Yeah,
interesting
yeah, yeah.
fact. Like
But-
that's
3 of us had heard it in some variation on it before.
yeah.
So is it that
Me being
interesting
the only
or
one.
original? I feel like
I know
original
what you mean.
comes
Yeah,
into
yeah. Originally
interestingness.
has to come into it. Yeah, I think that's
If
true.
you do think about overall like a pocket calculator having more power, then
It's
that
definitely
is definitely
interesting.
crazy.
It's interesting, yeah, but it's
I'd
Ollie's
say
going
like
to top
a-
marks for originality. That's fair enough. You
I
kick us
don't
off,
know.
Jago.
I would say a 7 for that.
7.
I'm happy to stick with 7. I think 7's a fair shake.
I'd probably go 6, but so
Luca.
majority.
Probably
says
go like 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could use it.
Right.
There we go then.
Stick for 7.
There we go. Everyone's gone 7. So his total loot score so far is a solid 12. Hopefully
Jago's
the
at
next
3
score's gonna
points
give him a bit
ahead.
more.
We now have usefulness.
Yeah. Is it useful?
I would admit it's not.
Although it's not particularly useful.
Yeah, I think it like you can use it. So it's
Yeah,
like
although it's not
conversation,
particularly
maybe.
useful as in it's not going to benefit my life, it's definitely useful as in that's going to come up a lot when people have a calculator out or, as you said, a Nokia.
Yeah.
I could find that factor. I'm going to say 8.
But the only thing is that because a couple of us have heard it is probably one of those things that people have heard a lot, so they're probably just
Oh, that's a good point. That does make it a little bit less
Already
useful,
know it.
to be fair, if you
Yeah.
already know it.
Mm.
Alright,
It's a difficult one.
that's a
What would
good
you
point.
mark
I'm
it
going to
for?
dot mine down to 7. It was an 8, but you're right, if it's less useful if more people know it. So I'm going to go, 7.
Jago.
Yeah, I think 7 is fair.
7. I'm again going to go with my trademark 6.
We go with Oliver on this one, 6.
Six.
Split.
Split. We'll,
What we saying?
we won't go half marks. We'll go because the majority
We've
of
got
them being 7. We'll go with 6.
Okay, that's how democracy works.
I hate my life.
From now on, if it's like a split score, we'll always go lower. Just so
Ollie's
that's
getting
fair.
twos.
Split scores go lower.
Overall, we have 18.
We have a grand total of 18
Quick maths.
points.
That's horrible.
That's a solid
It's not
score.
bad.
It's not a bad score. It's
Jago
over average.
started off high, so it's going to make us all look.
Yeah, Jago's was a bit of a corker. I like
Jago
that one.
always starts with high.
Nice fact, Josh.
So,
Thank you.
that was good.
So speaking of horrible segues, here's Ed's fact.
Nice. Okay, so
I like that.
my fact is that water can freeze and boil at the same time. Now, as mental as this fact sounds, looking at it on video, the setup doesn't look too scientific or complex. It seems simple, just a Bunsen burner placed over a small glass container which has all the air sucked out of it. The temperature of the flame increases until eventually the temperature and pressure of the fluid reaches a point of thermodynamic equilibrium. This can also be known as the triple point of the fluid, and it is when the point is reached that we see the marvelling brilliance take place. To try and explain what thermodynamic equilibrium is in short terms isn't an easy task. By definition, thermodynamic equilibrium is an axiomatic concept of thermodynamics. It is an internal state of a single thermodynamic system or a relation between several thermodynamic systems. It sounds absolutely incomprehensible, and I'm not going to try and explain it because I don't understand it myself. So to put it in slightly better or easier terms, it's systems that are mutual in thermal, mechanical, chemical or radiative equilibria simultaneously.
In English.
So basically, they're matched. Oh, it's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain.
That as they spread out, because they're being heated, the pressure that's creating then causes them to also be frozen
So-
as a state.
Yes, because it's very, very hard to explain.
It does sound very complicated, admittedly.
Right, okay, so we have a solid bit of water, a little
Yeah.
droplet like that.
As exampled here on our nice table.
This droplet has potential to be a liquid, a solid, or a gas. At the moment, it's a liquid.
Mm-hmm.
However, if it reaches sort of like an equality in thermal, mechanical, and chemical and radiative systems, then it has potential to be all three at once.
Okay. I mean, that makes
Right.
sense.
Do we get that? So
Makes
basically,
sense.
it's because it can't decide which to be. It's being all three at once. So that's why the system keeps freezing and boiling and freezing and boiling and freezing and boiling.
Okay.
However, just because it looks simple doesn't mean you can do it at home, or we can't do it in studio. We need a lots of equipment
It's a
and things
shame.
like that. But
And some kind of vacuum.
I spoke to Lauren Davis over at IO9, and this
What's he
system that
got?
I was explaining, she says isn't quite right. She explains it slightly differently. She says, as the liquid boils, high energy molecules leaves the liquid as gas, lowering the temperature of the liquid left behind and causing it to freeze. This process of boiling and freezing continues while the substance remains at this pressure and temperature, which although isn't quite as, excuse the pun, cool sounding as a thermodynamic equilibrium, it definitely seems a lot more understandable. She explains that instead of being perfectly in balance, we're seeing phase changes near the triple point, not on the triple point, as the three states aren't in perfect equilibrium. But
Okay.
either way, water is freezing and boiling at the same time. So it doesn't matter how it's working.
Let's mark him up.
Yeah,
Ollie,
it's pretty cool.
what are you thinking about
I'm
that?
not gonna lie. Well, in terms of legitness, there's clearly a lot of research gone into that. I can't fault the research, and I'm sure if we were to do some research of our own, I'm sure our facts would match up with that. That seems pretty legit to me. So I'm going to give it a solid 8 for legitness. I'm only docking the 2 points off 10 because you struggled a bit to explain it. So,
Yeah, there was
I
probably
feel
the
like
bits
it's
that I
unfair.
explained. There was probably
Unfair.
so I
legit.
reckon solid 8 for legitness.
I'll give him a 9 for that.
You're giving him a 9?
Yeah, because I feel like it is legit. But like you said, he struggled to explain it, but then again,
Yeah.
it doesn't take away from the.
It's understandable.
you know,
It's
It doesn't
understandable.
make the fact untrue.
Yep. Okay, Josh.
I'm going 8 as well. I think.
Going an 8 for legitness.
Yeah,
I
you
like that.
You struggled to explain it, but I think the amount of evidence
Yeah.
you got down, I think, yeah.
Okay. And Luca, what are you feeling?
Say an 8.
He's going
nice.
for the 8.
Going
You
up
say
to an 8, yeah.
8's around. If you could put that down, I'd appreciate it.
I would love to.
Perfect. Okay. So what about epicness? How interesting do you find that fact?
Pretty mad, but
give it a solid 9. Just
You
'cause
give
how
it a solid
cool it is.
9.
Take away from the boring explanation of it
Yeah,
all.
yeah. It is.
Well,
a
can we though? Because
Yeah,
like, I feel
that's-
like you're gonna have to give them an explanation. You can't just
Like you said, you
like,
can't
be
do it at
like,
home.
oh, this is a thing. They're gonna be like,
Because like you said, you can't do it at
Like,
home. I mean,
you need a bit
do
more
like
than
that
that. You know what I
equipment.
mean?
So yeah, it's pretty mad, but like. You know,
It's only a 7 from me.
You think a 7?
Yeah.
I'm
It's
thinking
low
7
ball.
as well.
Good
There you go,
fact, but
7.
it's just way too much.
Luca?
I'm going with G.
What are you saying for interestingness?
I
Ethics
already
even?
said I said a solid 9.
You said a solid 9, of course you did. Apologies.
Listen.
I'd go for
Child.
scathing. I'd probably go for about an 8. So it was 9, 8, 7, 7. So we're gonna go in the
Get an
middle.
average.
Say 7.
7.
7. Scores on the board, please.
Alright.
It's not happy with
And
that.
as for
That's what averages
usefulness, usefulness.
He
What are we
liked my
saying for
9,
usefulness?
but he didn't like the 7.
I like the score as a whole.
How useful do you think this fact is?
I mean,
Not very.
not extremely, because
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's not like you
I
can use it in
can't-
everyday appliances.
Yeah, I can't see like a point way of
Slip
going
it
to,
into
and even if you
conversation,
do
make some
like,
friends.
I mean, when you are like cooking eggs in the kitchen, like boiling eggs, you could chat to your mum and be like, "Do you know that you can boil that and
Yeah.
melt it? Oh no, and freeze it at the same time." Sorry, I got my words mixed
I
up
mean,
there.
in
Melt the
theory,
egg
you
with
could
the
also
water.
use it to make
Yeah.
delicious milkshakes, as well as the fact you can
Once
also.
again, milk, not water.
No, you can't.
Oh, you could make a milkshake at the same time as a
Yeah, you can't.
fried egg.
No, because milk doesn't boil and freeze at the same time. Water
It's
does.
water.
Oh wow.
So it's not really.
How do
We'll
we
make
know
a
that?
useful
We
shake.
should ask, we should ask
Alright,
Laurie.
so I'll give it.
Technically cyclohexane, but we won't get into that.
I'll give it a
Yes,
solid
let's not get
5,
into that.
5, 6 for usefulness. I'm saying so 5 for me. Luca,
5.
5. You guys,
5 from me.
5.
Yeah, 5.
5's all round then.
I think
Incredible.
it's
Copied us, Oliver.
Okay.
too many big words.
So we've got
I'm not
8
smart
plus
enough.
5 is
I lost
me
13
lost in
plus
plus 7 is
equilibrium.
20.
The right side is better.
Solid
Thermodynamic.
20. That means, ladies and gentlemen, Jago is still in the lead.
Wait, how? Oh,
Horrible.
how? I didn't. I didn't. I
Well,
didn't
okay,
count
stand
that.
up.
Sorry, properly. Sorry.
That's right. Right now, next on to Oliver, who's going to give us a fact on animals.
And before we move on to the topic of animals, I'd like to take a moment to talk to you about our sponsor. Pet Shop have kindly offered their financial support, and in return, we ask a moment of your time to talk about their new product range releasing in the UK. Pet Shop is the best way to make your pet's mealtimes more exciting, with a selection of nutritious condiments available for your best friend. Brilliant.
I'm gonna redo that.
Just
What?
Someone did.
I just
Okay, now on to Ollie for a fact on animals.
Speaking of animals, we'd like to take a moment to talk to you about our sponsor. Pet Shop have kindly offered their financial support to us, and in return we ask a moment of your time to talk about their new product range releasing in the UK. Pet Shop is the best way to make your pet's mealtimes more exciting, with a selection of nutritious condiments available for your best friend. Available online at www.petshop.store.uk. Enter discount code F4CTS. That's facts, all capitals, with a 4 replacing the A, for an additional saving on great tasting condiments that we bet your pet will enjoy. A massive thank you to our sponsor Pet Shop for making this episode of Factinating possible. Now on with the show. My fact today is about 2 cats, in fact, called Blackie. One cat, named Blackie, as I've previously stated, was bequeathed a fortune of £7 million when his owner, Ben Ree, died. Instead of leaving his estate to his friends and family, he left the majority of it to his cat, Blackie, who was the last surviving at 15 he lived in his mansion with. He was a millionaire antiques dealer. He refused to recognise his family in his will and split almost all of his wealth between 3 cat charities, his one cat called Blackie, a couple of gardeners and mechanics also got some money. Our other cat that we're going to talk about today is also called Blackie, and was adopted by a man called Carl Miles, who credited his psychic ability to this cat. One afternoon he was playing with his cat named Blackie, who was about 5 months old at the time, and Miles thought that he was saying things to him, which is a bit odd, after about a year and a half of talking to him. and trying to teach him the English language. Blackie could eventually say short words and phrases that Miles and his wife would ask people to pay to hear. So he'd walk along the street, people would give him a couple of cents, I think it was, because it's in the States. Yeah, a couple of quarters. And then Blackie would say some choice words. Unfortunately, though, police charged the couple with operating a business without a license, and they had to stop. Miles did fight the case, and he fought for Blackie's freedom of speech, but unfortunately, the laws were not allowing that. The judge came quite harshly down upon him.
Reminded him that cats couldn't speak.
Yeah. Although Blackie's freedom of speech was fiercely defended in court, he did not.
Wow, that's a little double fact.
In fact, in court, another little extra fact on here. The judge said that if Blackie had such good freedom of speech, he'd ask Blackie to speak for himself. And Blackie, of course, not very good at defending himself in court. So
that is a good fact.
that's how he went down.
And it's a double fact.
It is a double fact. So what we think,
Sorry,
ladies and gentlemen?
can we just redo this without Jago speaking all the way through while she's trying to read your fucking facts? I can't believe how fucking rude that is. Jesus
Alright,
Christ,
we're
what are you
putting that
doing?
in. Oh dear.
Fucking hell.
Oh, pretty much.
I feel like the second part was just a bloke squeezing his cat and just making him make horrible sounds. It sounds to me like animal abuse.
I mean, it's potentially a bit.
So I squeezed his rump
Yeah.
to make him make the
That's what I
sound.
thought you said.
What
Just
is it?
squeezed
Well,
it.
called
Yeah.
meowing.
Yeah.
Crushed it.
Yeah,
Just
it's
gave it a
rubber,
little bit of a.
Oh, that's a
squeak.
bit different.
I
That's
can't
all right.
imagine he just took his cat and was like.
I'm thinking just like bagpipes.
Squeal.
It's just fucking.
Yeah.
No, I think
Mauling
it
it.
just
Can't prove it.
He said meow.
it sounded a bit like English. So what are we thinking is,
Right.
is that pretty legit?
First of
fact?
all, yeah,
Double
sounds
bill,
legit
but-
to me.
Mm.
I mean, we haven't got any particular journals or anything. It seems a bit hearsay, but
It isn't.
I
It is
can't
cited,
see why people
but
lie about it.
There are records of the court cases if we want to look it up.
and we this
terms of
can't forget
business
it's a double
charging.
fact as well. The first bit of the fact was pretty legit.
I say the first part sounds more real, but the second part sounds a little bit less.
It does sound a bit
Interesting.
urban mythy, but I mean you can
We'll
look
take
up
the facts
court
to heart.
case.
I think I'll give it a 9 overall on general. I can't see anything in there, even though it sounds a bit hearsay, as you said. We could look up the
Mm.
court case.
It could be a bit urban mythy, but
Sounds good to me. I'm gonna go 9.
okay.
Anyone else?
Who's next then?
Three.
Say
Jago's low.
Three.
Jesus
Three.
Christ.
Well, no,
Why
it makes
three?
more. Well, I don't know what part you wanted me to judge, but like the
Oh,
second
legit
part, it
didn't
sounds
ask
more
for the
like
square
a
root of
sounds
it.
more like a story rather than a
Yeah.
fact. Like, where is the fact?
Yeah, true.
So I
Okay.
like maybe I'm
accept
missing
where you're coming
something, but this thing might have happened. The cat might have
Yeah,
made
I'm
it sound
with
like it's
Jago.
just it's not very factual. This
Yeah,
is a
I'm-
podcast
I'm
about facts.
I think
Okay.
I'm gonna go
Fair
for
enough.
a solid 2.
I think the fact was more the fact that a cat
Yeah.
was given
Actually,
a case on freedom of speech.
Yeah, but
that's
the way it was
interesting
presented,
itself.
I missed it, and I
I
judged
should
it
have
based on
focused
how it
on
was
the court
presented
case,
to
really.
me.
The fact was that
So
the
I'm
cat
thinking-
It's a free.
was
So
charged for
It's a
operating
free
a
for me
business
as
without a
well.
license. So we got 2, 3, 3, 9.
Mm.
So lowball that and go for the 3, I guess.
Well, apparently we're going for lower score, so 2.
Oh, we? We're
Yeah,
lowballing
yeah.
it even
That's
further.
what that's what we
It's
voted
like
mine,
score.
so
Wow. Right.
what
let's
did
put
everyone
that
give
there.
him?
So we're going
I
3
don't
or
know.
2.
give yourself 3.
Alright, we'll go 3.
Yeah, go
It's
3. I
unredeemable
did
anyway.
did
Put one
say
back
3.
up.
Unless I get 2
But
10s, I
2
haven't
for-
got anywhere near the lead anyway, so
Good point.
that's fine.
Right,
I
what's
reckon
next?
Jago's
Epic
score there
notes.
was actually a game move.
Yeah, I
It's
think.
a bit
Well, I
game
think
theory.
it's interesting as well. To be honest, that fact you had 2 bits.
Epicness.
Both about a cat called Blackie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I'm gonna. Yeah,
I'm gonna give him a 10 on this one.
I'm gonna go 9 again.
What for interestingness? Epicness even.
Epicness.
Sorry.
Epicness.
Sorry. I'm putting
That
you
sounds
to
like such a hate.
Epicness is not a word.
Mm.
Neither was legitness.
Neither is Factinating.
No,
There we
it's
are.
not, it's on
Yeah.
me.
Factual.
That's so. Okay. Again, I've gone with quite a low score here. I think maybe like a 4. Only
Do
because
you not think a talking cat and a 7 million?
no,
Well,
because
well,
for a
first
cat is
thing, the
interesting.
first thing, like Luca said, there's been like other people leaving their fortunes too. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
like not as original as it may seem.
Okay.
Yes, but the cat has a name, Blackie, that also
They're
shares
both
its name
called
with.
Blackie, in
I mean, that's the
fairness.
interestingness.
Yeah,
of it,
that-
not the
I-
fact
yeah.
that someone's left.
But no, that's just kind of like
I don't think that makes
by
it epic.
chance these 2 cats are named
Yeah.
the same thing.
So what are we
by
going for?
chance.
I'm going
Mine
5.
was a 4.
Fuck. God, what do you vote?
I'll go with you 9.
9. Right. So what's that? 6.
Yeah.
6.
So we're averaging them
Six.
now.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel bad now. I wish you didn't say 3.
I can't believe I went for 3.
I mean,
Such good fact.
What?
I think we should
Well,
have done it the
well,
other way.
I
around.
wouldn't
There was
have
no
gone
fact.
for 3
I was
unless you
quite
said
generous
that.
towards you,
Feel
Jacob, as
bad.
well.
Huh?
I was quite generous to you, and now I see you're just
So would I
gaming
if
the
you gave
system.
me-
Yeah, if we're marking it this critically, Jesus.
Yeah. You've got a 2.
Now we got to
Okay,
give him a
well.
10, so he's at least close.
Right. Anyway, enough waffling.
I mean, this is usefulness. I can't see this has got any use, but
Oh.
yeah.
Usefulness.
I'll give him them.
Terms of
Yeah,
arguing
to be
free
fair,
speech
you-
It
cases.
isn't actually that useful.
I suppose the
It's-
law
it
thing's
is- it is
true.
legal
with
precedent,
animals.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
but
if
it's
somebody
legal
wants to
precedent.
start a business with a cat, I mean,
well, that's true. Any pet in law, that's sort of true. And the money being passed down to pets is quite interesting, and
Yep.
I think that could be useful.
I've got a
Essentially.
question actually. Do you think
Uses
a
defence
parrot
money.
in court could like defend itself?
I don't
No.
think they're that
No.
cognitively
Unless
advanced.
they've repeated the
unfortunately.
whole.
Yeah,
I'll
unless
tell you
defence,
what.
like-
Let's put this into use. Probably not.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's already been put
Yeah,
into
to
one.
be
So I'm gonna
fair,
have to
we've
give
got
that an
legal
8.
precedent there.
Give it an 8.
So, giving it 8 for
Give it
usefulness.
an 8.
You two?
7, but only for
Yeah,
the first
I'm going
part. 'cause I didn't
7
like
as
the
well.
second
Fair
part.
Okay, so 8, 8, 7, 7.
We'll go 7. If
We're going
it's a joint
7.
school, we go
We
lower.
are going low balling, aren't we?
Yeah.
So 7.
9 plus.
There we go.
That's fair enough. 7's fair enough.
So grand total of 16 on that one.
Can't say I agree with that.
Lowest score
Well, I got
wins.
18, so I'm not, you know.
What do you say?
Winner's always a loser. No,
Okay.
loser's always a winner. I mean,
Well, moving swiftly on from that harsh criticism of what I thought was quite a good fact, we're now going to move on to Luca,
I thought
who's
it
got
was
some quality celebrity gossip from us from the early 90s.
yes, I do.
Good man.
Right. Did you know that Robert Downey Jr. has been arrested multiple times and spent time in prison in the 90s and early 2000s?
Didn't it?
Yes. The Iron Man actor Downey was first arrested in 1996 for possession of heroin, cocaine, and an unloaded Magnum revolver. He was then arrested 2 weeks later when he broke into a neighbour's house
Pretty
in
mad, to be
Malibu
fair.
while under the influence of drugs. I mean, like, why would you even break into your neighbour's house?
Neighbours,
Isn't it?
Why
all
would you do
people,
drugs?
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Why would you be
Downey
involved
spent
in
some
drugs,
time.
really?
Downey spent some time in prison in '97 and '98. Was placed on probation, and was ordered to undergo drug counselling. However, a missed drug test provided. A missed drug test for fuck's sake, it's proved. However, a missed drug test proved to be his downfall. It landed him in California substance abuse treatment and state prison in Corcoran in 1999. Downey was then released in 2000. But 3 months later, he was arrested again in Palm Springs for possession of cocaine. Again. And Valium. A little bit of Valium. He was released on $15,000 bail the following day. He's a
Fair
rich
enough.
man.
Ah,
Yeah.
Robert Downey
That's
Jr.
interesting. I knew he had a criminal past, but I didn't know how much it was.
Mm.
One of the
Yeah.
songs such a hater.
This isn't all of it as well. This is just a couple. There's like
And then
Yeah.
Hollywood stars, there's
I
plenty.
had heard
Yeah.
that before, though.
Apparently got hooked when he was 12 or something.
Really?
yeah.
Oh,
Back then, all like stuff like heroin was like more glamorized, like cocaine. So you
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah,
what it
yeah.
was.
All the 12-year-olds were doing it back then.
And more readily available as well.
Probably.
Like
Yeah.
it was on Pulp Fiction.
Alright, so, yeah,
That's
good
true,
point.
actually. It looks pretty sick.
Right,
If
so,
I hadn't heard heroin before, I'd be like, hit me up with some of that. That's dank.
Hit me up.
Looks alright.
What's the mark?
legitness.
I mean,
I mean,
there's definitely
Probably is.
research there, there's
Pretty
dates,
legit, yeah.
there's
Yeah,
almost
it's-
certainly
it's-
court
it's
records.
10,
to
I
prove
believe
that.
that.
10 out of
10,
10,
I mean, yeah.
10 out of 10
10,
legit.
yeah.
I think that's a
Get
good
that
start.
right.
Yeah.
We don't
Any
understand
disagreement?
that. No.
Right, 10 out of 10 for legitness.
Epicness.
It is a pretty cool fact about
It
someone who's
is,
very famous.
But
feel like
I
it
think
falls
most
flat on
people
that.
know it.
A lot of people do know it, but like in my
I thought it was pretty
defence,
well
I'll
known.
say that you probably did know you spent time in prison, but you probably didn't know all of the things that were on
Yeah,
there.
no,
Yeah.
it's true.
I'd
It's
give
true.
it a good solid, like, 7, 8 maybe.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a little bit more harsh with it. I do think you're right, there is parts,
I
but
reckon
I'm
7.
gonna go half,
But-
5.
I'm going to stick half as well, just keep a nice simple 5.
Okay, so we go 5, 5.
That's cool.
Well, I do think that if you were a fan of Robert Downey Jr., it might be something that you were interested in, but then again, I think it's just like another Hollywood star has been arrested sort of story. So it's a 5 for me.
It's a
Fair
5,
enough,
so
yeah.
grand total 5.
Thought you were giving me a low score then.
Yeah, that's what I was
I'm
thinking.
going to roast you.
Five to one. It's because he's been too harsh already.
Okay
Right.
then.
Usefulness.
Usefulness.
Well, it definitely come up quite a lot. If we all know it, it must be
definitely comes
quite
up in
useful.
Conversation.
So, however, we did
Which
say
do things well
earlier,
known.
if everyone knows it, then it
Yeah.
does become less useful.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'd still give it like a.
I'll give it a 7. I'm going
I'd
to give it a 7 just because it's a fact that I could probably use more than any of the ones we've heard today.
I reckon maybe an 8 to be fair. I reckon it'd come up in conversation quite a lot.
I'm
I
going to stick
reckon
my
it's something
7.
you could cite a lot.
Yeah.
I reckon it's good. I reckon it's a really useful fact.
I'm gonna go a bit harsher because I think it's just
Okay.
quite a well-known fact because how famous he's got right now because
Mhm.
of Marvel and all that. I'm gonna go 6.
He's gonna go for the 6. And
Fair
Jaden?
enough.
Mixed opinions. Well, I do think it is something you could bring up a lot because
Mhm.
it's quite an easy fact. I think that's also quite unoriginal. Like I said, a lot of
Scores
Hollywood
quickly.
stars doing drugs, getting arrested. Like
Okay.
it's not very new.
He's going to change his score now.
So
You can't change score.
Just glance at
score.
the
You're
You're not allowed to
He hasn't
change
said it yet.
Oh, is he
Huh?
not? No, he did. He said 7.
no, I didn't.
No, I didn't.
I'll never give that.
That's
That's a 5 now that you said that.
5, right.
Yeah,
so
just because I was going.
8, 7, 6. Wait, is it 5, 6, 7, 8?
What did he give?
I get 6.
Alright,
Yeah,
I
5,
thought-
6, 7, 8. So it's 6.
Go with 6 then.
6 it is.
21.
I hate you.
6.
Oh, Jacob.
Can't believe
So we've got a
Jacob's
grand total of
I genuinely
21.
can't believe
If
Jacob.
we're all to at the end, there's
Yeah.
no way
Okay.
Jacob
I think if it was,
So,
I think
course.
if we
No
knew
chance.
all the facts first, I think we would have definitely put Jacob last.
I knew how harshly we were marking
Yeah.
it all.
So
no, it's not harsh. It's just
at the end of the show, of course, we have one chance to eliminate one person's fact.
Yeah.
Jacob.
Just in
Yeah, let's
case
all
we
vote
thought
for
they were
Jacob.
being unjust with their criticism and trying to game the system.
Oh,
So,
we could actually
Luca.
do that in future.
Jacob.
Look, we are doing that.
Yeah, let's do that now, actually.
Why
Yeah.
don't we do the
Yeah.
original idea of writing down the scores then showing it at the end,
Yeah.
like we said?
Bit dead, innit?
Then it would have
Yeah.
been a better one.
We just broke the fourth wall.
Tell you what, yeah,
So,
let's not break the fourth wall.
Which fourth?
Camera pans round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
What's the third wall? Like the second
That's
wall.
a good point, yeah.
Third, second,
Fourth
fourth,
is-
fourth.
yeah.
Oh, that makes perfect
The
sense.
fourth
That's
one's
what
the
it
one.
is.
Yeah,
Fourth
yeah,
is
yeah.
between. Yeah.
Really?
Fourth is
Really?
between
Well,
the audience.
that would have been a
That
better
makes
fact.
perfect
sitcoms.
sense, yeah, yeah.
Fourth.
Sitcom.
Yeah.
Fourth is between the audience.
There you go. That's a 10 out
Does
of
that
10
mean
fact
if,
on the
like-
next time he's
Yeah,
up.
to
They're
be fair, that's
breaking
a fair fact.
the second wall. Does that mean they're only going to be like?
They're
No,
breaking
it's
this wall,
the back.
run up,
Yeah.
breaking
Yeah,
the
breaking
wall.
the second wall, just have a bit of your set
It's
missing.
with a sitcom, so like.
So
there's
if
always
you're,
one
if you're
wall
filming a
with the audience
sitcom,
watching.
look, you've got your wall. You got, say, you've got all your characters in there, and you've got camera in there.
There's only one angle that it's not.
So it's filmed
yeah,
from that
so
angle.
that's
real
That would be where the fourth wall is, and they've all got to pretend there's a wall there. Because
Oh.
So it's like from the angle of the fourth wall,
it's
where
about
the fourth wall
yeah
would be, is
breaking
where
the
the
fourth
audience
wall,
is.
is
Yeah,
recognizing there's a camera there.
No way.
Yeah.
Which
there
they're like,
isn't.
Yeah,
there
which
isn't.
there
Which
is.
there's
Or
ten technical.
recognising that you're like, I don't know what I was going to say.
Bonus fact.
Bonus fact.
bonus
yeah.
fact at the end there, ladies and
That's
gentlemen, the fourth wall.
Okay, so our first, I'm going to say undisputed, but it's definitely disputed.
It's highly disputed, but at the same
Factinating
time,
champion is Jacob Plummer.
Thank you very much.
congratulations.
Oh, there you go.
Cheers.
Thanks
Would
for
you like to
watching,
say
guys. Tune in next week for our next episode of.
Factinating.
We could redo that quick.
Yeah, probably.
I like
What,
that.
the whole thing?
Yeah.